It's up, GOAT World. It is me, your boy JDZ, and I'm back at you again with another GOAT format video. Inevitably, whenever we do a tournament report or any type of deck report or top 8 decks, someone will ask, where is the extra deck? What's going on with the extra deck? Can I see the extra deck? I need to see the extra deck. And today, you're in luck. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about the extra deck in GOAT format. So if you don't know this information, pull up a seat, pay attention. If you do know this information, go ahead, continue to pay attention, and maybe you can correct me where I got something wrong. Either way, go ahead and like this video and subscribe to this channel. Everything you need to know about the extra deck in GOAT format. The first thing you need to know about the extra deck in GOAT format is that it's not called an extra deck. It's called a fusion deck. Simply because in GOAT format, the only monsters that could go in your fusion deck were fusion monsters. So when synchro monsters came out, that's when they started calling the extra deck. And also when they did that, the extra deck was limited to 15 slots per deck. In GOAT format, you can have unlimited amount of extra deck monsters. You can have 3 copies of every single fusion monster in the game. So to simulate that in the online game, if you're in the middle of a duel and you need a card that you don't have in your 15 slot, just hit this little plus right here and it will allow you to type in whatever card you need for that specific situation and you can summon it to the field. That's how we duplicate that on duelingbook.com in the online space. In the IRL game, you might have to make some concessions based on your financial situation or what cards you have access to. Today I can show you some cards that I would prioritize if I was making a fusion deck to play IRL. Before we get into that, let's talk about some other things. What is a fusion summon? A fusion summon is the act of special summoning a monster from your fusion deck by using a card that states fusion summon. To be clear, if you use a card that doesn't say fusion summon, it's not fusion summon. So keep that in mind. You know, people will try to cheat you, people will try to sneak that in. The only 2 cards that can fusion summon that I know of in GOAT format is going to be Fusion Gate and Polymerization. Those are the only 2 cards that can fusion summon. The other cards that you may more commonly see, cards like Cyberstein, cards like Metamorphosis, cards like Summoner of Illusion and the Hex Sealed Fusion, whatever guys, those all are going to be special summons from the fusion deck. When you do that, you cannot reanimate those cards from your graveyard because they were not properly fusion summoned. So if someone uses Metamorphosis on 1,000 Eyes Restrict, brings it to the field and it goes to the graveyard, you cannot activate Premature Burial to bring that 1,000 Eyes Restrict back because it was not properly fusion summoned. So keep that in mind. A special summon and a fusion summon are not always going to be the same. A fusion summon is a special summon, but a special summon isn't always going to be a fusion summon. So with all that out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and show you some cards that you should prioritize if you're planning on using a deck that can utilize the fusion deck if you are playing IRL capacity and you don't want to, and you want to be more efficient with your bucks in your fusion deck compilation. All right, so the very first one that I'm going to talk about, I'm going to just go from 1 star all the way up to 9 star. I believe that is the highest level in GOAT format. And the first one I'm going to talk about, no surprise to anyone, it's going to be 1,000 Eyes Restrict. This one is basically a fusion deck staple. If you're going to play any deck that requires fusion deck or special summon from a fusion deck, it's probably going to lean heavy on this card. It's super easy to get out. Metamorphosis 1 star is going to be on the field using Scapegoat. I mean, this is definitely like a linchpin of the entire format. Everyone should know what 1,000 Eyes Restrict is. If you don't, check them out. This card is probably why you're trying to play a fusion deck in the first place. So you're going to start your fusion deck with 3 copies of this. If you can't get 3 copies of this, it's extremely cheap. It's super affordable. It's been reprinted 1 billion times. It's all over the place. If you can't have 3 copies of this, I probably wouldn't play a deck that can that requires special summoning from a fusion deck. All right, so the next one, level 2 in GOAT format, surprisingly, there are no level 2 fusion monsters in GOAT format, which is just a complete oversight by Konami. They dropped a bag on that one. That kind of irritates me every time I need a level 2 to make for my fusion deck, and I can't because it just does not exist. So there are no level 2s, but there are some level 3s, and level 3s are quite important as well. Some of the level 3s that are more important than others, I'm going to put Dragoness the Wicked Knight. I would try to get a copy of Dragoness the Wicked Knight because it definitely comes up sometimes. And also I would get a copy of Flame Ghost as well. Flame Ghost, because it is a dark monster, there are opportunities for you to set your graveyard up by going Metamorphosis, bringing out a Flame Ghost, maybe tribute that, and then now you got a dark monster in your graveyard. But also I want to get Dragoness the Wicked Knight in there because that 1200 attack comes up sometimes too, and it is 3-star. It can get under the gravity binds, under the messenger pieces, under the level limit, stuff like that. 1200 attack is also quite robust, crashing into GK spies and the like. So I would go for both of these if you can. I mean, they're not super over the top important, but definitely having at least access to some 3-star monster in your fusion deck is critically important if you're playing like a go control strategy. All right, going on to number 4, the level 4, the 4-star monsters. You have 2 options. You have Darkfire Dragon, which is this card here, and you have Carbonala Warrior. Carbonala Warrior, basically same stat line, and it's just an earth monster that's a warrior. But if I had to prioritize one or the other, I would go with this one because it is a dark monster, and this format definitely revolves around the chaos mons. You don't have to limit yourself. You can have 3 copies of all of these and more. You can have 3 copies of every one in the entire game. But if you just had like a very limited budget, or a limit for whatever reason, limited to a lower amount, I would definitely go with a Darkfire Dragon over the Carbonala Warrior. Even though sometimes people might play Gaia Power or something and do cheeky meta for level 4, bring out Carbonala Warrior, announce at 2000. That's really funny when that happens. It's not often, but it definitely comes up. So that's why you want to have a nice well-rounded fusion deck for just niche interactions that come out. That's the best part of the game to me, in my opinion. But Darkfire Dragon is going to hold the priority spot in that number 4 position, and I would definitely get one if you don't have one, if you plan on playing a fusion deck. All right, going on to the 5-star monster. This is where it starts to get, this is where the monsters start really picking up some heat. You got some heaters coming in at that 5-star position. The first one is going to be one of my favorite fusion monsters, going to be Dark Balter the Terrible. This card is fantastic. You know, it can negate normal spell cards, it can negate monster effects. This card is too damn good, man. Snatch Magnet though, too damn good. All you have to do, meta for a level 5 Cyberstein, you can bring out Dark Balter. In a pinch, you can Summoner of Illusions of Dark Balter. You can Hex Seal Fusion of Dark Balter sometimes, you know, if you want to get crazy and wild with it. But this card does have a caveat on it though, that says if you do fusion summon this monster, you can't have the substitute guys in there. So it must be fusion summon with the proper materials, but at the same time, you know, you still can meta for this thing, and it is a absolute staple in the fusion deck. I would you might have to spend a little bit for this one, but I still would recommend having a Dark Balter the Terrible in your fusion deck. All right, and the next number 5 that I would prioritize is going to be Fiend Skull Dragon. Okay, this guy comes up a lot too. There are opportunities that this thing can, I mean, with flips being everywhere, this thing can negate all those flips. It can't be targeted by traps. It is a win. That is kind of a bummer. 2000 attack, meta for a 5. I would get me a Fiend Skull Dragon in there to complete your fusion deck. And the last number 5 I'm going to talk about is going to be Reaper on the Nightmare Horse. Reaper on the Nightmare Horse, it can come out in a pinch. It's got the 800 attack. You can attack direct, and you're taking their cards from hand, and it can't be destroyed by battle. This card, sometimes it's a cheeky meta play. You bring this thing out. Actually, I do have one more level 5 I want to talk about. I want to talk about Guilty of the D Knight, just really quick. And if you could, obviously, I would try to seek this card out too. If you see it, it's in everyone's bulk. It's always around. You see this card all the time. I would definitely grab a copy of that if you can. Throw it in your fusion deck because it can come up sometimes too. When you snatch steal your opponent's Thunder Dragon, you can now sacrifice, or you can meta for that, bring out Guilty of the D sometimes, and then now you have a light monster in your graveyard. If you don't have your own Thunder Dragons or something like that, you know, it just comes up. Just the really niche interactions. That's why I think it's better to have more fusion monsters, because it opens up more things that you can do over time. If you play a bunch of times, you're going to have interactions that come up, and a Guilty of the D Knight can be really funny if you can do that. Very cool when you pull off cool plays like that. All right, so that's it for the level 5s that I want to talk about. Now we're going on into the level 6 monsters. The first level 6 monster I want to talk about is going to be Darkblade the Dragon Knight. Darkblade the Dragon Knight with that 2200 attack stat. That's why this guy is good. Also, his effect is quite good as well. Banishing 3 cards from your opponent's graveyard is always going to be live, especially in this Chaos Turbo Chaos meta that we're in. So Darkblade the Dragon Knight, I would definitely secure a copy of that and put it into your extra deck. Meta your Chaos Sword for a Darkblade, always going to be the vibes. Meta whatever for a Darkblade can also be great too. Okay, the next one we're going to talk about, staying with the 6s, we have my guy Ryu Senshi. This is another staple. So first, if I had to call staples, I would say Thousand Eyes Restrict, the Dark Fire Dragon, the Dark Balter, the Fiend Skull, the Reaper, and Ryu Senshi. staples. Like, you can't play without him because it comes up so often. You need to have Ryu Senshi in your fusion deck if you're playing any type of GOAT strategy. You got to have it because he's just too good. He can't be targeted by spell cards. He can negate normal trap cards by paying 1,000 life points. It's just too damn good. You got to have it. All right. The next one I'm going to talk about, this one's pretty good too. It comes up, but it's not it's a little more niche. It's going to be my guy Ojama King. So Ojama King taking up another spot in that 6-star position. A lot of good 6-star monsters in that in your fusion deck as well. So I'll put the Ojama King in there because that also comes up mainly because it is a light monster. It is a 6-star monster. It does have 3,000 defense. It can lock your opponent out. So sometimes you get behind, you bring out the Ojama King, put that on the field in defense position. Your opponent is not going to be able to get over it with any type of attack. They have to use a card effect, and you can kind of lock them out of the game for a little while. Maybe you can get some more resources and get back into it another way. So I like Ojama King for that. Put him in your fusion deck. No big deal. And then now we're going on. So that's it for the 6s. Now we're going to go on to the 7s. The 7-star fusion deck monsters, another one that is an absolute unit. Powerhouse of the sale, we have King Dragoon. This card, you got to play it. You gotta play it. You gotta play it. It's almost so good to make you just put Fusilier the Dual Mode Beast into your deck, or another way to kind of cheat this thing out to the field. This guy gets brought out with Stein a lot. This guy can get brought out with Metamorphosis and Fusion Gate and all that kind of stuff too. But King Dragoon, this thing can't be targeted, and it can also special summon dragons from the hand. So this thing is a very, very good card. I would prioritize getting one. And if you have a way to make level 7s, maybe if you don't have a way to make level 7s, I still would just get one anyway, because maybe you might something might have. You might snatch steal something. You know, keep that in mind. If you're playing brain control, if you're playing snatch steal, and you have Metamorphosis, there's always going to be an opportunity to put those cards into play. So keep that in mind. All right, so that's King Dragoon. And the next one, to keep sticking with the level 7s, I'm going to mention, the honorable mention is going to be the Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon. I'll never make an extra deck without putting Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon in my extra deck, because every now and then you'll play someone who's playing this card. They'll be playing Fusion Gate, and you have Thunder Dragons in your deck, and now you'll have the opportunity to make Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon through their own Fusion Gate, and that's always really cool when they can do that. At the end of the day, it's also a light monster, and it is a 7-star too, so you can Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon and then metamorphose that into a King Dragoon, and now you got pretty much light and dark set up, man. Come on, that's what I'm talking about. So just put it in there. It costs you nothing. It's basically free. These things are all over the place. It's just in everyone's bulk, just sitting around. Put freaking Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon into your extra deck. No big deal. All right, next one I'm going to discuss. So that's Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon right there. Even though this thing looks absolutely nothing like regular Thunder Dragon, I think that's a mistake, but whatever. The next one we're going to talk about at the 7-star position is going to be the Last Warrior from Another Planet. Last Warrior from Another Planet. What that planet is, I don't know, but this card is good, man. This card is good. Cyberstein can pull this thing out, you know, on the Reasoning Gate strats, and now they just can't even put a thing onto the field. They're good. They're pretty much locked out of the game. And when you're down bad sometimes, when you're down bad in a low resource situation and you're just feeling like, oh man, woe is me, you can somehow create this thing, make it to the field, and you can deck your opponent out sometimes too, because if they've used all their resources, they can't do anything but just set into the face of this thing, and then they could just deck out. So I think this card is really good as well. I would consider putting Last Warrior from Another Planet into your fusion deck, and you can't go wrong. All right, and the next one. So that's it for the 7s, and now we're moving on to the 8. Again, there's other 7s you can use, and there's other cards you can use, but I'm just talking over the ones that are kind of mostly played the most often. All right, going on into the 8s. The 8s, we have the only real feasible 8 that is worth discussing is going to be this guy right here, the Gat Nasty, the Gatling Dragon, coming in at the 8-star position. It's really the only meta target that you can get. It's really the only Cyberstein target that you can get. Speaking of another honorable mention, I will be remiss if we're making a fusion video and I don't take the time to discuss this guy right here. You know, this guy right here, this Dark Paladin. But the issue with Dark Paladin, he is 8-star. The issue with Dark Paladin, this card says it must be fusion summoned. That caveat is on this card, so you cannot Cyberstein for Dark Paladin. Don't let people cheat you. You can't Metamorphosis for Dark Paladin. You can't do any of that stuff. You only can Polymerization and Fusion Gate for this card. So that's why I didn't really mention it, because it's very difficult to summon in our game. But it is iconic and it is 8-star. Same thing with the XYZ Dragon Cannon. It must be first summoned from your extra deck, but it has caveats. You know, it has things that you can't do it. As you look at Gatling Dragon, it doesn't have any of that stuff. So you can play Metamorphosis, Cyberstein, all that kind of stuff. And the card is actually going crazy sometimes too. When it hits the field, it's got that coin effect. You can blow up, you know, monsters. You can blow itself up too, so keep that in mind. If you only have 3 monsters on the field to include itself and you flip 3 heads, you're going to blow it up too, which I think is an oversight. They might have misplayed there, but it happens all the time. But Gat Nasty, I think this one also is going to be one of the more higher end fusion monsters. It's going to cost, even for the common, it's like $10 for 1 Gatling Dragon, or $15, something like that for the common one. It needs a reprint desperately. The ultra rare, ultimate rare one is well over hundreds of dollars. I don't know why, but it's just another iconic card that is going to fetch a high price, and you're going to have to pay for it if you want to play it. That's going to be Gatling Dragon coming on that 8th position, and in the 9th slot, in the 9-star slot, in the final position, I'm going to put the Master of Oz. Okay, Master of Oz, I would keep this in the fusion deck as well, especially if you're planning on running Stein, especially if you're running the Summoner of Illusions. Those are probably going to be the other 2. If you have flex cards, like flex cards, not like flex cards, but cards to flex on your opponent with, you know, Black Skull Dragon, Thousand Dragon, all that kind of stuff, I would put all that in there and just make your extra deck as beefy as you possibly can and just flex on your adversary. But if I had to just make a limited pool of extra deck monsters, I would start with these first. I would seek these cards I have up on your screen right now, because you can pretty much do anything you want to do with your extra deck with these cards. But basically, I just want to make this video really quick. I just want to show you guys what the fusion decks are, talk about those, how unlimited they are. That's why we don't show them when we're making deck profiles on GoFormat.com, or we're talking about decks or tournament coverage. We just don't show it because you have them all. You can do whatever you want, especially online. But in the IRL space, maybe you might have to make some caveats. But still, I would start with these. If you have any questions about anything that we've talked about in this video, go ahead and get into the comment section and let us know. As always, I'm JDZ. I play GOATs. Until the next time, shout out to all the real ones. Salute to the OGs. Peace.